Welcome back, everybody. Today we will be discussing the SB Dunk Sean Cliver Holiday Special. Specifically, we'll be discussing whether you should sell or hold the Sean Cliver SB Dunk and why. To preface this, if you guys enjoy these types of videos regarding the market, reselling, and even info on how to acquire these limited products, be sure to subscribe and enable post notifications just so you're always 100% updated. Furthermore, for more urgent updates like shock drops or raffles and Sitelists, follow my Twitter, KeithAdam10, and also personal for you. This way you're always in the loop 24/7 whenever there is a restock or drop, such as the numerous PS5 and Xbox restocks that went on today. For those who don't know, the Sean Cliver SB Dunk drops on December 19th for $110 in men, $90 in kids, and $75 in toddler sizes. Regarding how to get these, aside from raffles, you have Nike Sneakers Europe at 9 a.m. CET, and also US at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. These will be Leo drops, so you will have 2 to 3 minutes to enter in as many accounts as possible, and as you guys should know by now, the more accounts you could get in within that period, the higher your probability is of actually copying the pair. So in order to determine if the Sean Cliver SB Dunk will be a fruitful hold, we will cover an estimated range of what the sneaker will settle at after the drop and also when shipments come in. Essentially, the pair is going into circulation, whether they're expected to increase post-drop or even hypothetically decrease, along with how much specifically over specific periods of time, and finally, what type of margin are we looking at for these in terms of holding. Not the retail to resell initial margin, which is fantastic for these, but rather just a hold margin over X period of time. Kicking it off, let's discuss the estimated range of what these should settle at in men and grade school sizes. To begin with, stock for all sizes combined worldwide is very low at only just 35,000 pairs. And keep in mind that this stock is from all sizes, not just men pairs. There is an absolutely absurd amount of demand for these in combination with that low stock as well. I presume it's very fair to say and quite obvious that all sizes of men and grade school will be very profitable with incredible margins. As far as toddler pairs, we won't be discussing these in depth like we will for the others, simply due to the fact that they're normally not very volatile. What I do want to say though is that you should be able to make a little bit of lunch money off of them, so I'd still suggest going for those on the actual release date. We just won't really be discussing them like we'll be discussing the men's pairs. Now, regarding a specific range for these, we'll first continue to see this decline in value as we approach 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the 19th. To illustrate the amount that these should settle at right before the drop, as our first step, we'll first take the data from the first 6 days to find the average rate of decrease. I say the last 6 days since that's the closest we could get to a linear decline. This way, we will avoid having to do any unnecessary calculus. So over the past 6 days, these have decreased on average of about 19%. And keep in mind, I'm rounding just a little bit since the sale volume is very low on a limited sneaker like this. Then, since we did this over 6 days, we divide that by 6 to find the average rate per day. Remember, we can do this since we did use the last 6 days, which were pretty linear. Then this gives us a rate of about 3% per day on average, of course, just an estimate. So then, since 10 a.m. Eastern Time isn't the start of the day, and it'll be pretty active since Europe will have dropped beforehand, we can add an extra half of the day, giving us the 18th and part of the 19th. So I guess we could say 1.5 days from now. So it would be 1.5 days worth of that 3% decrease, giving us a decrease of 4.5% from where we are right now, right before 10 a.m. Eastern Time. You must understand that the half day isn't exact, of course. I just don't think it's worth to give the 19th a full 3%, considering we'll see a change of pace at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, which we'll discuss later. Following this, we remove that 4.5%, giving us about $600 before 10 a.m. Eastern Time on average. Obviously, some of the more profitable sizes will be more than this, and some of the more stock sizes will be less than this. I was planning to go in-depth for the grade school pair as well, specifically, but since StockX temporarily removed them for some reason, I'm not exactly sure why. I can't exactly do this with the numbers, but I would say you should see somewhat of a proportional reaction, just like what we're seeing with the men's pairs, obviously, just with the proportional numbers. Keep in mind, this is not what they're expected to settle at post-drop, this is pre-drop. So now we will use this to find out what they will settle at post-drop. So now post-drop, we will experience what I like to refer to as the impulsivity effect. If you've seen these videos before, you've seen me mention it, so I'll just briefly discuss it again. Sneaker drops specifically tend to impact human impulsiveness, specifically after an individual fails to acquire that desired product due to insufficient supply and too much demand. Therefore, on average, we normally see an increase of 10% of the pre-drop prices post-drop. This isn't always the case, but majority of the time it is, and it should be the case on these as well since they are very highly sought after. During the morning of the 19th, after the drops occur, until late afternoon and evening, we should see a pretty solid premium. Assuming a potential 10% increase, men's sizes should then settle at around the price you see on the screen right now, but numbers aside, I can personally see them going for slightly lower than this, strictly from anecdotal experience. But regardless, you guys get the gist. Even if it's a small percentage off or so, it won't be a significant difference. Keep this number in mind because we'll be revisiting this number when discussing what are the most optimal times to sell at. Now let's discuss what prices will look like once shipments go out in the 1 to 2 week range. During this period, the vast majority of pairs will be going out into circulation, aside from the minimal amount of pairs that were in-store raffles, in-store first come first serve, and the early pairs. Considering stock will be very low on these, I don't think that specifically, the stock portion of it, will impact it too much. However, on the other hand, when it comes to very highly valued sneakers like this, often some people end up panic selling. This small dip won't be too drastic, but it will be definitely noticeable. You normally see a 10 to 15% decrease on average, and for these, due to the very low stock, I'd normally side on the 10% range, but since these are going for so much, we can see those potential temporary panic sellers, so I'd give it closer to the higher range, so perhaps 14% of a decrease. That should sound somewhat fair. This would then give us about $565. Again, from anecdotal experience, the numbers aside, I can potentially see these going for even slightly lower than that once all pairs go into circulation. Following this, I do think that these will make a slight recovery in 2 or 3 weeks, but we'll discuss that more in depth later. Now that the average price ranges at those points in time are evident, let's now discuss whether they're expected to increase post-drop or even hypothetically decrease, along with how much specifically over specific periods of time. So over the last 2 years, Dunks and SB Dunks have proven to be very fruitful holds, prime example of which being the Strange Loves. But you must keep in mind that they were not initially going for the same amount of these. These are going for significantly more than that initial $400 to $450 range that the Strange Loves were initially selling for. More importantly, I think many people are expecting the same result on these, or very hyped dunks in general, so it is somewhat anticipated already to see a potential rise, which reduces the potential for it to increase even more. So for example, on the contrary, we also saw the Ben & Jerry dunks, which essentially haven't moved at all, making them a fruitless hold. In fact, they even went down a bit. When it comes to these silvers, I see us being in somewhat of a medium position. So I don't believe that these will go down over time. In fact, I believe that these will increase over time, but by how much is really what matters, especially with a sneaker with a resale value this high already. First, I can see these slightly recovering from the panic sellers in about 2 to 3 weeks or so, so nothing too noticeable. This is something that we often see when it comes to very hyped sneakers with super high resale values, but then following this, I expect these to essentially see a plateau in value for a very long period of time, perhaps even 7 months or so. Then, after that, we'll see a gradual increase in value, but nothing significant nor exponential. Hold your horses though, just because I expect these to increase, that doesn't exactly mean I'd suggest holding these. What's most important is if they're really worth your time, because a lot of sneakers increase in value. In fact, I'd say the vast majority of which increase in value. What really matters is which one is worth your time. So now regarding the hold margin on these, essentially the price you could have gotten versus the price in say 12 to 14 months or more from now, I can't see it being anything too special on these. In the best case scenario, I can essentially see these getting to around what we saw on the Strange Love value. That would mean that these aren't even going to double in resale value from what you could initially get at the peak value post-drop, which we discussed earlier, in the best case scenario. And as you know, the best case scenario isn't exactly the most probable scenario. It's much more likely that we'll see less than a rise of that, making the margin even less impressive. I can potentially see these rising an additional $200 or so in the potential future, but that's not the best margin either, considering you could already have gotten so much more for these after the initial drop, and you compare these to the other potential holds we've discussed in the past. For example, the sneakers that I discussed in this video often do more than double in retail. There are lots of opportunities available right now for these too. For example, I think that the band mids have potential to be a really amazing hold. They're only going for about $110 right now. Specifically, the grade school pairs, I think we could see a really great margin on those. I'd rather be holding 5 to 6 pairs of those rather than these. Hopefully that makes somewhat of sense. And if you guys need to hold something more hyped, a lot of Jordan 1 highs we discussed in the past also have potential for a more impressive margin. So personally, I'll be trying to sell these as soon as possible. I'll be trying to take advantage of the quick Nike shipping that they do offer. And then I will attempt to sell these during their peak value, or at least close to that, depending on when my shipment is slated to arrive. Or you could even sell on eBay with 30-day handling, although I do suggest just being careful when it comes to eBay and very, very expensive products like this. And that's, of course, even if I could even get a pair myself, because these are very limited. In conclusion, though, although I do believe these will increase in value, I know that there are much better holds out there marginally. Regardless, though, definitely make sure you go full throttle on this pair. Tons of profit to be made on this release, of course. Anyway, good luck on this drop. We'll all definitely need it. Feel free to like if you enjoyed the video or you perhaps learned a thing or two. Also, subscribe and enable post notifications just to stay 100% updated on any hype sneaker. Remember, if you guys do need proxies or Nike sneakers accounts, be sure to check the links in the description for TARS and KIP proxies. And of course, follow my Twitter, KeepThatM10, and personals for you, so you're always 100% updated on everything. With that though, I'll see you guys later. Enjoy the rest of your day, and good luck on the drop.
Why are you always in my way?